Yes, thank you so much.
One moment. Can you see the presentation?
Yes, yes, I can see it.
Ah, great.
Okay.
Go to full screen, Florin, please.
Yes, yes, I will try on F5. Okay.
Okay, that's it. Thank you so much. My item is emptiness as a semiotic space of culture, case study minimalism in architecture. Sorry. Orientation towards the emptiness has always been an object of interest in both art and architecture. With its powerful symbolism and subjective experience, it reflects the desire to return to essential qualities and original state. The concept of emptiness requires a deeper understanding of space and human experience. Next one, please. Emptiness is the space between these things, but also the cavity that contains within many things. So focus is on making and iterating something and nothing, dynamic and static, dark and light. It suggests both essence and absence and presence. Empty space, which means nothing built within, can still be perceived with the perceptual forces and filled with a density which can call the visual substance, as Alheim did. Next, please. Emptiness and as essence, dichotomy between Eastern and Western culture. Minimalism in architecture contains the theme of emptiness, for which the concept of essence emerges as a leading creative tendency. In linguistic and Western philosophy codes, concepts of emptiness and essence could not stand together except as opposes. On the other hand, there is a strong connection between emptiness and essence in Eastern Buddhism, reaching the level of identification. Next, please. The topic is discussed in the juxtaposition of two cultures, Western as a spatial one and Eastern as a temporal one, in order to draw attention to a series of experiences of the emptiness formed by the function of space, i.e. its use, whereby the emptiness from concept becomes a productive energy. Next, please. Here on the table number 1, we can see emptiness as culture meaning in Eastern and Western culture. Emptiness as culture meaning is seen through phenomenon, space, interdisciplinarity, sign, identity, objects or process, freedom, striving for complete freedom, philosophy, and religion and temporal determination. Eastern culture is seen as a temporal culture and Western culture is seen as a spatial culture. And this is very important links between this and these opportunities, but unfortunately I have no time now to explain it, maybe some other time. So next, please. On the table 2, we can see influence of emptiness on the formation of Japanese culture. Emptiness is seen as a result of Taoism and Buddhism for meditation and experience of emptiness. And emptiness further impact artist creativity and aesthetics experience, and in the whole it impacts a culture and its expression through architecture, the tea ceremony, painting with a shower, painting of form, art of flower arrangement, theater, and quotes of dry landscapes. Next, please. Emptiness as a metaphor. The relation between space or emptiness and meaning is a metaphorical one. The study of the metaphorical meanings of space is set in this article towards Lotman's semiosphere as a space which can, in some respects, include itself in a way in which the included space is an icon of the including space. Lotman describes semiosphere on the basis of dualism, levels and spatial poses that exemplary the tattoo semiotician's theory of the duality of the discreteness of semiotic space and their verbal representation versus the continuity of physical space and of pictorial representation. Next one, please. On this table, we can see real space as an iconic image of the semiosphere. This is Lotman's semiosphere in the framework of his universe of the mind. Real space as an iconic image of the semiosphere, a language in which various non-spatial meanings can be expressed, while the semiosphere in its turn transforms the real world of space in which we live and its image and likenesses. Next one, please. Emptiness as a semiotic space. Culture is a system of two spaces relating to two levels of cultural semiosis. The textual space created in the arts, in myths, social codes, or ideologies, and the second one, the metatextual space created in the form of cultural self-descriptions. Any description of culture, according to Lotman, is a cultural structure that is a text in the system of self-descriptions which form the metacultural level. Next one, please. Ma, or the mind as an emptiness full of possibilities. In Japanese culture, for the complete lack of clutter, there is a different term that refers to the emptiness. That's ma. In the ability with which things can be exist, stand out, and have meaning, there is a gap between all things. That is an emptiness full of possibilities as a promise that has yet to fulfill. The essence of Japanese aesthetic is in this concept, or concept of ma. Next one, please. The quarter refers to ma. First one by Renzo. She said, ma can now express the period in which we live and an idea which inspire many contemporary architectures, a stream of thoughts that do not intend to reduce complexity, but rather to explore the most essential, absolute idea of architecture in its scarcity and ubiquity. Next one, please. About a space, Fletcher writes through the consideration of space as a substance. Paul Cézanne painted the model, the space. Alberto Giacometti performed sculpture from taking fat from space. Stefan Mallarmé began striking with the voids, but just as the words. Or Ralph Richardson argued that the acting is in pose. Isaac Stern describes music as little between each note, the silence that gives shape. The Japanese have the word for this interval that gives shape to the whole. In the West, there is neither a word nor a term, severe failure. Next one, please. Case study minimalism in architecture, emptiness as a theme. Zumthor said, every idea needs its form to be effective, to be meaningfully stated. Emptiness in minimalism determines the meaning and purpose of something. It becomes an expressive language and construction material. In a minimalist emptiness, new forms of perception and visual can experiment. Emptiness manifests itself as a necessary condition for each determination. It is a creative act and right form, not an indefinable empty space. Next one, please. Emptiness as a theme in minimalism. It is about simplicity, generativity, and symbolic shapes. Simplicity, it looks at the perception of space trying to offer itself as an intact and defined essential element. Generativity means emptiness is one of the subjects of traditional Japanese architecture, where space is not only empty in the physical sense, but above all in a mental shadow. Symbolic shapes, it means rising from the area of collective unconscious, archetypical and represent a precondition for the processing of thinking and creative processes because they generate concrete forms or architecture forms. Next one, please. Quote by John Paulson. The thing I'm looking for is the excitement of empty space. It allows making architecture alive. The emptiness allows us to see the space as it is, to look at the architecture in the way it is. Next, please. Some architecture projects which underline this phenomenon. First of all, Kengo Kuma, well known by his emptiness in his spaces. Next one, please. The second one, Tadao Ando, also one of the famous today's contemporary architects. Next one, please. And Iris Mateus, also very, very famous by there's thoughts and there's work about emptiness. Next one, please. Conclusion. The ancient Romans used to say multum in parvo, or a lot of small in small amounts. In relation to the dichotomy between Eastern and Western culture, this case study tests the starting hypothesis of the research by which an emptiness is a metaphor that belongs to the semantics of connotation, offering a spatial model for the interpretation of culture. The idea of emptiness as a paradigm of the creation of minimalism in architecture combines sensory perception and spirituality. At the same time, it is the recognition of differences and creation of a new global culture. Next one, please. Thank you so much for your attention. I'm here if you have something to answer me, or I don't know, some questions. Is there some questions about minimalism or emptiness or something just like that? Or we shall left it for the end.
Yes.
No, thank you very much, Mrs. Dragana. I think we have to put the question at the end because we are in the late time.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we go to the next presenter.
Yes, I think it's me.
Okay.
I'm gonna try to share my screen. Tell me if everybody is seeing well.
Yes, please.
Yes, okay.
Yes, we do.
I don't remember how to move it because it's a new computer. I'm so sorry. It's working. Perfect. Well, in this research, we analyzed the architecture of the Centre Pompidou in Paris, Malva in Buenos Aires, MoMA in New York, and the Tate Modern in London. More specifically, the facade, esplanade, and entrance halls, understanding these spaces and as intermediary discourses, which is a concept developed by Oscar Traversa, who I would love to dedicate this presentation. That it's my most important professor he's not here anymore. The architecture of the museum configure an experiential promise to visitors and consequently anticipate what will be experienced inside these buildings. The idea of experiential promise implies that in 21st century, visiting art museums does not only involve contemplating the artworks on display, but also highlights the tensions between visitors' expectations and the notions of art and museum staged in these buildings institutions. Under this premise, we have applied three central notions, what Eliseo Verón has called the reading contract, what Oscar Traversa called intermediary discourses, and what Oscar Steinberg has defined as genre and style. In in 1983, Elisée Oberon worked on research for the Centre Pompidou that aimed to understand the links that the institution had with its visitors. The work proposed to think the exhibition as a mass media with an specificity. Its basic structure is the metonymic order. Exhibitions are understood then as a network of redirections in space, timed by the visitor's body at the moment of the appropriation of the possible route. Thus, the itinerary strategies expose the link that these people establish with the institution and the expectation of the visit. That means what Elisée Oberon called the gap between conditions of production of a discourse and conditions of recognitions of museums' discourses. By considering the museum as a mass media, we applied to the museum the notion of the reading contract developed also by Elisée Oberon. These terms refer to the link that connects a media with its readers, which becomes evident after its enunciative analysis. In our case, we analyze the enunciation of museums' buildings. The notion of the experiential promise is analyzing the potential link between the visitors and the museum. This is why it's essential to analyze its intermediary discourses, a concept that was developed by Oscar Traversa in relation to film criticism, and which he had defined as a discursive subcategory that acts as a connecting instance between our interest of consuming something and the producer of that we want to consume. In that case, in our case, the museums are producers of exhibitions. The intermediary discourses works as a relationship between three machines. The textual machine, that is the museum's programming, the spectral machine, that means the complex that articulate our desire with the supposed satisfiers, and finally, the machine that makes the link between the two, criticism for Traversa and the architecture of the museums in our case. The third central concept is the genre-style binomial, understood as an opposite and complementary set of discursive organization, whose first member can be understood as a mold, and the second as a way of feeling it. Oscar Steinberg has proposed three dimensions to analyze them: the rhetorical one, the thematic one, and the initiative one. According to the proposed terms, the explanade, the facade, and the hall should be analyzed as moulds, and the way of museums present their programming will be their spaces of differentiation that will reinforce the link with its visitors. The field analysis carried out between 2017 and 2019 result in the emergence of a possible category to be called modern contemporary museum that manifests the current state and the fusion of the museum's system categories. The experiential promise configured by the museum's buildings expose proposal for visits oriented to call the local lifestyles, even if they are in some part aimed at tourists. So the Malva is positioned as a space for the museum's neighborhood, the upper class of Buenos Aires. The MoMA and its old building underline the New York identity overlapped with a specific area, Manhattan, and a specific social class, the business community. The architectural proposal turns the museum into a safe in which to house one of the most valuable collections of modern art in the world. The Centre Pompidou is configured as a space of reaffirmation of Parisian identity. Its experiential promise is intended for those who frequently, regularly. Here, the visitor can be safe from the tourists who visit the Louvre. The Tate Modern talks to three types of public: the local one, to whom it proposes regular attendance, and the tourist, the national one, and the foreign one, to whom it offers a touristic experience in an emblematic London building. On the other hand, the attitude of the museums, rather than being entirely pedagogical, oscillates between offering information and letting the visitor do. Tate has been able to balance the pair's freedom, directionality, information, action. MoMA and Malva have recognized the value of the laissez-faire stance in the renovation of their building, but the Centre Pompidou is somewhere between accepting and rejecting this attitude. Finally, all the spaces in the museum propose multiple experiences, so that we no longer demand not only art, but building capable of offering us many things to do. Tate Modern has summed it up clearly. They offered eat, art, and shop. So we have the border. The Modern Contemporary Museum presents a new institutional style and multidisciplinary experiences capable of being experienced, of course, inside its buildings, but also and fundamentally in its margins. This materializes a new type of visitor whose links with the museums are developed through the spatial and temporal trajectories enabled inside and, above all, outside the exhibition room. The border visitor emerges from rhetorical recurrences that highlight the habitability of the spaces bordering the exhibition, proposing experiences based on passing and doing. In this sense, the most important feature of the Modern Contemporary Museum is temporo-spatial dynamism. And contrasting speeds in the way in which they propose to inhabit their spaces. The amplitude is observed not only in the scale of the buildings, but also in the possibilities that the visitor had to appropriate it. It exposes a large panorama of things to do and appeals to different types of visitors, mainly the border, the one who spends more time in the spaces bordering the exhibition experience, that now it's absolutely the same that eating a croissant, drinking a coffee, or buying a book. The configuration of these border visitors involves the design of trajectories with precise temporal graduations. In this sense, the acceleration within the exhibition room contrasts with the deceleration of the time visitors spend in the edges of the museum. The exhibitions are designed to avoid all kind of pause. There was notable the absence of seats, for example, while the edges are announced as part of the museum experience and organized for resting a lot of time. This highlights the tension between two museum experiences, the traditional one based on the contact with the art and the apprehension of knowledge, and the 21st century one based on things to do, or that marketing called the full experience. The museum public, so, is made up of active subjects who need to do things, including creating images. The selfie is not longer just in front of a painting, but also in front of the name of the museum, which even makes it clear that the experience can, in certain cases, displace with the art. That the recurring hashtag observed in certain spaces in the hall and in the visual material offering to visitor not only makes the modern museum more contemporary, but also highlights the need to go beyond its frontiers to offer a customizable experience and allow visitors to be creators of new images. The tour of the museum building has become an experience in itself, and this type of visit implies a link not only with art, but with institutions. This, our contemporary modern museum has already understood, and the adaptation of strategies to exploit and extend the time of the visit at its edges will seem to be its paradigm. I want to go to the museum. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation. Now we are moving to the next one. Mr. Hamid, can you hear us now? Yes, but we cannot hear you, unfortunately. No, try with some speakers, maybe some D, and restart your computer. I don't know how to. Okay, we can see your share screen, yes, but we cannot hear you. No, we cannot hear you. No, unfortunately, we cannot hear you. So I propose to you to resolve this problem, and in the meanwhile, I will invite our colleague Ida Skubis to present. It's okay? To not lose the time. Thank you for your understanding.
Okay, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Okay, I will share my screen.
So,
okay, I cannot share it while
Mr. Hamid, can you stop your share screen, please?
Maybe if you leave us and come back, it's gonna work.
I don't know.
No.
Okay. You have the floor. Good luck.
Okay, I hope that you can hear me and you can see my screen.
Yes, I confirm.
Good, thank you. I'm going to talk about pluricentrism in communication today. Okay, it works. So the first, of course, the ability to communicate in a foreign language is the most important part of every learning process. So we can distinguish both oral and written communication. Communication is the activity of information exchange between two or more participants in order to convey or receive the intended meanings. In every language, there are a few levels which need to be mastered in order to communicate effectively. That is phonetics, grammar, lexis, and pragmatics. Recently, the researchers focus on another aspect of the language, the concept of pluricentrism, which seems to be highly essential in communication in all other aspects of the language learning process. So first, I would like to explain the notion of monocentric and pluricentric languages. So the first one, monocentric language, is a language which has only one standardized version. However, a pluricentric language is a language with various interacting centers, where each of the centers codifies its own national norms. Pluricentrism means that one language has at least two national norms. The Indo-European languages are English, German, French, Spanish, Portuguese, and Italian, which are pluricentric. And first, I would like to concentrate on the German language because I'm going to describe German and English language. So first, German. German was treated until the end of the 80s of the 20th century as a monocentric language. The German in Germany was treated as a main variant and as a norm, while German used in Austria or Switzerland was treated as a secondary variant or as a deviation of the norm. This means that the Austrian and Swiss German weren't perceived as equal to the German used in Germany, so they had lower status. After the 80s, it started to be perceived as a pluricentric language finally. German is a language used in several countries, and each of those countries possesses its own variations which differ from each other. German is used in Germany, Austria, Luxembourg, Switzerland, Liechtenstein, and also in East Belgium or South Tyrol in Italy. And those differences concern phonology, morphology, syntax, lexis, pragmatics, and they refer not only to everyday language usage, but also to the specialized one. According to Ammon, there are 3 full centers of German language. So it's a German in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. And as you can see, we have here 3 varieties. However, there are also, so German is used also in other countries which form the group of semi-centers of German language and which do not have codices. So they are not codified. Semi-centers of German include the following countries: so Luxembourg, Liechtenstein, East Belgium, and South Tyrol in Italy. And now, quite shortly about Austrian German. German is the sole national language in Austria. Austria is a country of numerous dialects and jargons, which is due to its geographical location and historical backgrounds. The research conducted by Peter Wiesinger showed that most of Austrian citizens apply dialects or colloquial language in everyday language usage, while only 2% of Austrians use standard language, so-called Hochdeutsch. Schulz states that Austrians are aware of necessity to master standard language as it is used by teachers, students, politicians, TV presenters, and by all the people who want to communicate with foreigners or German language users from other countries. Swiss German, about 73% of Switzerland's population acknowledges German as their main language. Francophone population represents 13% of Switzerland's population, and around 6% speaks Italian. There is also 0.5% of population that uses Romansh, and the remaining 7% uses the languages that are not the official languages of Switzerland. There are 2 forms of standard of Swiss German. The first one is standard German language, which is described as Schriftdeutsch or Hochdeutsch, and the second one, which is called Schweizerdeutsch, and has a few different regional dialects. And generally, lexical differences between German varieties between Germany, Austria, and Switzerland can be divided into few main groups. So the first one is food, dish, meal, household, clothes, administration, judiciary, healthcare, school, army, working life, sport, games, human behavior, social, character traits, and other. There are also some few more examples of Austrian German. So the differences between Austrian German and German in Germany. And you have also here, so you have also mentioned few differences between Swiss German and German in Germany. So these are the words of French origin, or Italian, English, and Latin origin. I'm not going to mention them right now because I want to go further to the next topic, so pluricentrism of English. The English language is spoken on 5 continents. It is used as lingua franca, that is a general means of communication, and it plays a role as international language nowadays. the varieties of English are divided into 4 geographical groups. And here you have the groups, so British Islands, America, Africa, Asia, and Pacific. English, however, can be divided into 7 main national groups, and we distinguish British English, American English, Australian, New Zealand, Canadian, South African, and Indian English. The most commonly taught varieties of English are British English and American English, of course, and both of them dominated the education system. This is the reason why most of the English language users can communicate in both variations. They usually know some of the frequently used equivalents in USA and Great Britain, and some major examples are listed here. And so most of the people speaking English can distinguish between those 2 main varieties, so British English and American English. And now I would like to show you the results of the research. I made the research among students. And the following research is meant to show whether the students are able to communicate in various language centers of English and German. It is obvious that English language learners are oriented towards the variety used in England, as I mentioned, so British English, and in the second place, they tend to American English. The reason is that those 2 English varieties are the most common and useful from social and economic point of view. The wide network of contacts with Britain and USA involves not only films or employment, but also business contacts and tourism. It is quite natural that British and US varieties are most often taught and used. When it comes to German language, the students are sometimes familiarized with some notions used in Austria or Switzerland, but in a very limited form. And the aim of this research is to check the students' knowledge about English and German varieties, and the outcome of this experiment is going to show us if they are able to understand the notions from other varieties. The experimental group consists of 40 students studying applied linguistics. So they are studying 2 languages, English and German, and they were given, so the students were given 2 questionnaires, the questionnaire about English varieties and about German varieties. And the first question in both questionnaires was meant to check if they have ever been to any English-speaking or German-speaking countries. So 13 students traveled to Great Britain, and most of them indicated England in the questionnaire, and no one have been to any other English-speaking center. The situation seems to be much better with visits in German-speaking countries. 20 respondents have been to Germany, 13 to Austria, and only 2 people have visited Switzerland. The answers to the first question show us that although the English is the most popular as a foreign language in our country, most of the people learn it without possibilities to verify their knowledge in real life situations in English-speaking countries with native speakers. So they learn English in Poland and they use the language at school, at work, on holidays, but most of them have never been to any English-speaking country. By contrast, German language is not so in demand as English nowadays, but the data reveal that the learners have more contact or have more possibilities of contact with German language in real life. So the reason for this might be the distance. So Great Britain for us is far away, while Germany or Austria are easily reachable by car. The second question was intended to explore how many people have lived in any of the English or German-speaking countries. So the results demonstrate that none of 40 respondents have lived in any English-speaking countries. However, 2 students have lived in Germany. So both of them lived there as children. One person lived there 6 years and the second one 7 years. The next question addressed the following issues. So the English varieties and the German varieties they know. So the answers for this question are not compatible with the first one. So although more students visited the German-speaking than the English-speaking countries, their knowledge about German varieties is much worse. And sorry, because I have, and these are the outcomes. So as you can see, out of 40 students, how many no English varieties, so British English, American English, or German varieties. So the above results prove that the students have heard about English varieties and they are aware of their existence, but mostly of two of them, so British and American English. The questionnaire about German varieties confirms that the topic of German varieties is neglected in the foreign language classes, even if they had more opportunities to visit those countries.
Mrs. Cubis, can you finish in 2 minutes, please?
Okay, I can finish, of course.
Sorry, but
Yes.
the time is not our friend.
So I'm going only to show you very quickly the results about English varieties out of 40 students, as you can see, and then how many people answered. For example, they haven't given here any examples when they had to write down the words they know. So maybe just to sum up the whole research. Okay, so very quickly. So both questionnaires, so the questionnaire about English and German varieties show the grade of participants' awareness of language varieties. It can be observed that they are more aware of and better informed of English than of German varieties. The English language users participating in the research are well prepared to communicate in two most popular centers of English language, so England and USA. There is a problem for students to recognize the words coming from German varieties. And to sum up, native speakers or foreign language users need to pay more attention to the concept of pluricentrism and to acquire the equivalence of various interacting centers if they want to be competent and professional language users and be able to communicate effectively wherever they travel. If they do not devote more attention to the varieties of a language they speak, they might have difficulties to transfer and understand the content, and this in turn negatively affects the communication process. So, thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Hamid. You have the mic. You hope it's working. Oh, we can hear you.
You can hear me?
Yes,
oh,
yes.
Glad.
We are glad.
You can hear me?
Yes, yes, you can. We can hear you very well. So we have to in
yes.
12 minutes.
5 minutes?
12, 10, 12. Good luck.
First, I would like to thank very much the scientific and the body that has organized this scientific conference. In particular, the Professor Nicolas Soren, who has made a famous effort in linking us together in this semiotic family. My intervention clearly has the title Museum, Science, History, and Culture. I will in part take shorter time than to approach some of the constructive structure and cognitive concepts posed by the museum discourse. The specified content of museums is artifacts, handicrafts, industrial works, chaotic monument, illustration scripts, a mural, broken arch, architectural fragments, remains of crumpled ruins, mysterious things, and all the archaeological and historical memorial collection. It forms in its occasional representation a communicative discourse that connects in compositional structure various objects to value cognitive semiotic perception. The museum in representation and analysis is a space based on a construction of a subject with an state of contact with the past and the present, status subject disjunction, with a view to demonstrate a positive preferential attitude to a subject or situation around the diagnosed world. It has an active status as a discourse of power of the memory thoughts, presenting something with some semblance of extension of preserving the significance transformation in history and culture. Museum space distribute two geometric shapes, revealing a cognitive semiotic system framing museum science, connected and separated. The shape of the direct view represented by the space revealed the shape of the sizes. height and place, lines and surface, race and species. Then the form of the implicit vision explores its density and depth of mind and sense of self-structure and the values, seek the convergence between history and space as both structure, sense, and meaning. Historical inference and cultural presentation, thus, on one hand, it's inserted into the psychological and social memory world as at least a measure of actions and themes. On the other hand, it consisted as subject of explicit or implicit discourse, integrating both into the semiotic perception. It is a conductive and homogeneous semiotic construction subject to the control rules that place the image of its places in a logical correlation of part in all, that is the semiotic cognitive evolutionary right. Here is a semiotic reporting model linking science museum system to a perception semiotic cognition in assets and themes. The technique of break allows objects or their parts to be arranged with each other in a pot of thought, attitude, and sensations, leading the way in what is recognized as the organizational correlation between functions and their graphic code of message sign. But this is not enough to create a homogeneous space. Rather, the system must act on a semiotic optical connection, identifying the structure and the partial connotation of access to the entirely. The compositional masterpiece museum reduced the historical and the cultural between the self in question and the world of things, in fact, permitting a cognitive significance beyond any sub-representation, except an intricate interpolation, the way of seeing without being visible. Museum discourse overlaps semiotically the sense of things, action, and thought, and then the sense of the pole of conflicts process in physical and ideal, subjective and social, natural and moral, highlight the effect of psychological, social, and knowledge responses, value its deeds and thought. The museum sign is a special model for communication, education, and cognition structure in form and subject. It is the same as all other fashion systems, advertising, design, ritual, behavior. The relevance of their forms and subject matter determined by the social and the intellectual cultural structure. It refers to a function that denotes the meaning of the message and the code by which it conveys the meaning. It is according to Umberto Eco from the pattern of the sign that were made, the pattern that is the same as an unmatched original wall painting or Princess Diana within dress. The physical form of the sign is not sufficient to carry a direct meaning, but rather contributes to the production of implicit meanings, which advance and explore the mental representation of the perceptual mechanism to create the semiotic perception of it. Not only to do with infer signs, but we think through them. We treat things as signs that have a form in some sense, which defines a fact, not necessarily a voice or a picture, but something that can be tested by the senses, structured by actions and understood by cognition. The iconic sign in the image follow is concerned with the significance of visual, fictive, and effective event. Of what the sign may have to do with its meaning in space of a museum representation device, visual thresholds to enter the meaning and connotation of artistic metaphysics of elites, weather, and the story of history acts of war, Trojan, the meaning of power, struggle, truth, and myth, action, and value. The semiotic cognition of museum signs then included in the sign itself as a cultural right that transforms in processes the non-disclosure of the sign into a cultural model, extending to the entire psychological, social, intellectual, and a complex communication system. Culture here should be understood not as the as the repository of the information, but as the structure of a discourse word and semiotic, non-chaotic, non-identity situation within a cycle of a system of rules and symbolic hypotheses for steering and analytical modeling. Culture focus only through science and proverbial system, which are essentially the setting of communication rules that make for intellectual content or particular sensory experience. The science or actually cultural semiotic unites. The allied discourse finds its meaning in the iconic principle of the artistic sphere of cognition about history, culture, and society. It is produced by the sum of semiographic lines determined by the various internal reference procedures and with the necessary effective force which exists, its form in a simplistic craftsmanship to an internal or fundamental meaning. It inferences some external advantage gradually concerned with the representation of an extant picture that shows the harmonious reality in natural world. The museum things return to affective language, sayings, reality, or metaphor. It is true that museum can learn from textual literature independently of one's own, and they are bound by language in their metaphors. Impact in form and content is related to language. The Stone of Rashid, for instance, overlaps and communicates with the linguistic sphere of artistic discourse, transcend the social, cultural, and temporal boundaries of first creation that provide language as acquired knowledge. Made language in relation to museum objects comes from the enclave of full-fledged words that can then reduce them to at least a miniature scale what the universe like reflects, especially things like words, names, substantive, or signs both associated with the sum of the truth and that names can contain, which is necessarily limited in the proportion of reality of objects. The world's largest museum is smaller than the world it describes or represents. All museums, there are box games inside boxes. Its basic purpose is to think about recalling, evoking historical facts to see the mind and the sense in language and vision. The reference to the memory of a semiotic trace defines meaning and connotation through visual effects focused on the sensory function of experience. It connects a practical system with a semiotic model. Varying message of consciousness about cognition included the term called iconic memory system.
We have to please finish in 2 minutes.
Yes. The dynamic discourse sense system block the valuable subjects produced by the singularity of things of value to the aesthetic of semiotic regulation. It implied the logic of a cognitive memory that is active in diagnosing and embodying a special environment that includes history and space, even creed and thought. The creation of things identified, collected, and recognized is not selective. Rather, it's subjected to a system of formulaic and semiotic formative archives. It's an integral dominate on system and meaning, exploring a proposition how tangible objects have marginal value in reference to a particular place in time, society, and culture. Conclusion. The corresponding communication accords the persuasive intent by means of the purpose of the description and evaluation of its objects, signs and symbols. The richness of its meaning lies not in its byproduct, but in its challenging gender outlook felt from within and outside, particularly the wider cultural sector, structured from a combination of semiotic types of act and state. The foundation function is to lead public opinion, create composition, attend history, and increase knowledge. Thus, museums in particular and exhibition contribute to economic development by awareness of the responsibility of historical and cultural achievement, and even the active influence of the sector as an active development partner with historical, social, and cultural. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. If you want to continue, Aluminé Rosso will send you an invite to Zoom if you want. So thank you very much. Have a great day, and hope to see you again. All the best.